Cookie stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs. Behind him was the only life he understood.
Hi, Cookie.
Cold dirt, twisted metal, and a tarp for a roof. Ahead of him was a warm home he didn't know how to trust. I called his name softly, but he wouldn't move. After months of trying to save him, one terrifying question remained. Had Cookie escaped the scrapyard, only to carry it inside him forever? This wasn't just about teaching a dog to climb stairs.
I'm not eating yet, I promise. Oh my goodness.
Cookie had survived by fearing everything. People, unfamiliar spaces, even kindness. If he couldn't believe he was finally safe, his body might recover while his spirit stayed trapped. And in that moment, forcing him forward could destroy the fragile trust that had taken months to build. So I sat down and waited. But to understand why that moment mattered, you need to know where Cookie came from. I met Cookie completely by accident during an ordinary lunch break. I wasn't searching for a dog. I was simply passing a mechanic shop when something behind it caught my attention. Among stacks of old tires, rusted car parts, and sharp pieces of metal stood a pit bull. He didn't bark. He didn't run toward me. He just watched. Every rib pressed against his skin. Fresh wounds covered parts of his body, while older scars told stories I would never fully know. His eyes looked exhausted, not sleepy, but tired of expecting life to hurt. Then, I saw where he slept. A tarp lay directly on the ground. A few discarded car doors had been positioned around it like walls. There was no soft bed, no blanket, and no real protection. Just dirt, metal, and whatever weather came that night. I returned to work, but mentally, I never left that scrapyard. The next day, I came back with a treat. Cookie stayed several feet away. He wanted the food, but trusting me was another matter. I placed it down and backed away. That was our first conversation. I started calling him Cookie. I can't explain why. The name simply felt right for this quiet dog who had almost nothing gentle in his life. After that, I visited during every lunch break I could. I never chased him or demanded affection. I sat near him, talked calmly, and let him decide how close was safe. At first, he grabbed the food and immediately retreated. But each day, the distance became a little smaller. One afternoon, he took a treat directly from my hand. Another day, he sat beside me. Then, something happened that I'll never forget. Cookie leaned his body against mine, barely enough for me to feel it. It lasted only a second. But for a dog who seemed to believe closeness was dangerous, that tiny movement felt enormous. It was as if he was asking, "Are you really different?" And I desperately wanted to prove that I was. As the weeks became months, leaving him grew harder. Every lunch break ended the same way. I returned to work while Cookie remained beneath that tarp. He would watch me go, and I could feel his eyes following me. I began asking the mechanic who owned him if I could take him home. I promised to accept full responsibility. I wasn't trying to create conflict. I simply wanted Cookie somewhere warm, safe, and protected. But the answer didn't change. So I kept returning. I brought food. I sat with him. I earned another inch of trust, then another. But every night, Cookie still slept outside. Rain could reach him. Cold air could surround him. Sharp metal was everywhere, and I couldn't guarantee that he would still be there the next day. Then, after months of asking, everything changed. The owner finally said Cookie could come with me. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. My hands began shaking. I asked again, "Are you sure?" The answer was yes. I was bringing Cookie home that night. But getting him out of the scrapyard was only the first rescue. The second rescue would happen inside him. The moment he stepped indoors, he looked completely overwhelmed. A crate confused him. A dog bed meant nothing to him. He stared at the stairs as though they were an impossible wall. When his paws touched carpet, he froze. Imagine living so long without comfort that softness itself feels suspicious. He circled the couch carefully, studying it from every angle. He didn't understand that furniture wasn't something he needed to avoid. Then I offered him peanut butter. Cookie sniffed it, looked at me for reassurance, and gave it the smallest lick. For a second, I smiled. Then my eyes filled with tears. These were ordinary experiences for most dogs. But for Cookie, every soft surface, every new flavor, and every safe room belonged to a world he had never been allowed to know. And then came the stairs. Cookie stood at the bottom, unable to move. I could see the fear taking over. Part of me wanted to pick him up and carry him. But Cookie needed more than transportation. He needed control. He needed to learn that nobody would force him anymore. So I sat nearby. I spoke softly. I waited. Cookie lifted one paw, then pulled it back. He tried again. One step, then another. Halfway up, he stopped. For one awful moment, I thought he might panic and fall backward. I called his name. He looked at me and took the next step, then the next, until finally, Cookie reached the top. It wasn't graceful or fast, but it was his decision, and that made it a victory. Still, progress didn't happen overnight. Cookie guarded his food because his past had taught him that every meal might be his last. Sudden movements made him tense. New objects had to be inspected carefully. Some nights he couldn't fully relax, so I gave him what he had never consistently received: patience. Meals arrived every day. His bed remained in the same safe place. My voice stayed calm. No one punished him for being afraid. Slowly, his survival habits began to loosen their grip. Then one day, I walked in and saw Cookie stretched across his bed, sleeping deeply. Not curled tightly, not guarding anything, completely relaxed. His ribs were no longer sharply visible. His wounds had healed. His body looked stronger, and his eyes no longer carried that same hopeless distance. When I entered the room, his tail began hitting the bed. He knew me. More importantly, he knew he was safe. The dog who once feared carpet now walked across it confidently. The dog who didn't understand a bed now claimed the softest one in the house. The dog who once protected every bite learned that another meal would always come. And those stairs, they no longer trapped him. But the greatest transformation wasn't physical. Sometimes Cookie walks over and presses his entire body against me. Before, that tiny lean was a cautious experiment. Now he does it because he wants to be close. Cookie escaped the scrapyard that night. But the answer to the question from the beginning took longer. Would he carry that place inside him forever? Maybe a small part of his past will always remain. But it no longer controls his future. Today, Cookie sleeps peacefully beside me every night. No tarp, no freezing dirt, no walls made from discarded car doors. Just warmth, safety, and a family that will never leave him behind. Cookie didn't immediately understand what a home was. He had to discover it one patient moment at a time. And now, he isn't going anywhere. He's my family. He's finally home. If you believe every frightened animal deserves patience, safety, and a second chance, subscribe. Because every life matters.